Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And while outside the storm is raging, Jita is burning, we're going to do EVE Talk here and see if there's any noticeable impact on the market. Another big news that dropped on Friday is that the Rorcal is being nerfed again. In the March release. Lots of tears about that one, but to be honest, if you didn't see that coming, then you should really watch more EVE Talk, because seeing what was happening with the mineral prices, I personally think that this was pretty much inevitable. CCP was going to step in at some point. So let's get started. We are here for the market. As always, we'll start with some plex. That's going to be at 50 seconds. So 50 seconds, there we go. Plex are basically moving sideways. Oh, when I was checking for the ticker, a couple of Plex came in at 1,070,000,000. They're now selling for 1,071,000,000, and the buyers are at 1,027,000,000. So from the chart you can see that slight dip in the last week. But really we're staying in the same price range. 1,027,000,000. 1,071,000,000 is basically where we're selling at. What could be interesting from the burn Jita perspective, I've seen several ganks happen in perimeter. Has activity decreased in the perimeter market? Well, you've got this trade hub that is now basically being taken over by the I choose you market. And the volumes are pretty sizable, ranging from 1,070,000,000 down to, let's go, 1,045,000,000 for Plex. So especially if you want to use Plex, of course, you're still better off in the Jita perimeter station, but this tends to switch. It used to all be the perimeter trade hub free, I think, but now we also have a Planet 5 PanFam secured hub. That's interesting. So you've got nullsec blocks that are trying to take over highsec trade to get in on that juicy ISK, and it's understandable. It's going to be quite a bit of revenue if they can get that to work. And so at the moment it's the I choose you market that is taking over most of the business, but the PAMFAN sees a little bit of activity as well. It's going to be interesting to keep an eye on that. I think if we can just keep an eye on Plex itself at first, that's going to be a nice barometer to see whether or not they're succeeding. If it really starts to take over, then we should also start taking a look at those trade hubs for other goods as well, which I think is going to take a lot longer, because just Plex is so easily transported there. It's also usable from anywhere in space inside that station. So I think that's why people are using this type of trade first, and they're not going to start moving all of their minerals, for instance, to trade hub stations just yet. So we've got this one that is moving sideways, which means that the multiple pilot trade certificate is of course moving sideways as well, up just a little bit today so far, selling for 1,084,000,000, and then the buyers are at a first one coming in above 1 billion, but they're just below that, 998 million for most buyers of the training certificate. I'll take a quick look at the trade hubs in perimeter, but here you can already immediately see the drop. There's only 3 of them basically, one in New Caldari and one in the free courier hub in Erland, 2 jumps away. So there are no multiple pallet train certificates in the perimeter hubs. Pallet body risk up next. What's that one doing? Also moving sideways. There's not much to say. Sellers are at 288 million and buyers are at 245 million. There's just not that many to be sold, and the volumes are going down once again. Just 3 yesterday. The day before that, just 1 being sold. This is not something that you're gonna make a lot of money on. What could be indicated by, let's say, an increase in price all of a sudden of the pallet body resculpt is that for some reason CCP has made characters more attractive to the players themselves. This is something that they really managed to do when they first launched the skill extractors and skill injectors. It meant that people could really tailor some of their newer alts to their specifications, to make a carrier alt, maybe a jump freighter alt, things like that. And in that process, a lot of people said, you know what, I'm also going to make him look the exact way that I want to. So this is something that I don't think we'll see the body resculpt move until CCP comes out with a new feature that has the same success as the skill injectors and the skill extractors just in general, and of course has the added benefit of making people care more about their own characters, which I think would be maybe it could be an item, but it could also be something like a walking in station module. So don't expect to see like an entire gameplay built around that, but something small and limited, I think at some point is still possible, although of course CCP has never really announced any of that. So skill extractors next, obviously mirroring Plex extremely closely, selling for 247 million, bars are at 240 million. Quick look at trade hub activity, there is some, but you can see it's much more limited. We also only go down to 246 million, so we only lose 1.3 million by buying skill extractors in a trade hub. You then would need to convert that, probably even transport that if the I choose you market would come under attack, and as a result, to be honest, I would still stick with the Cheetah trade hub itself. But that's a personal opinion, of course. What I do think we can see is that if a single trade hub, even the Panfan Pandemic Family trade hub, would start to take over a lot of the active trade, you will see groups going after that, and you will see conflict over these trade hubs. That's my personal expectation, which I think would mean that structures become quite a success. Skill injectors next, continuing to take off in price quite substantially, going up to 680 million. Yeah, 699 pretty much for the sellers, 664 million for the buyers. That's going up in price quite substantially. An interesting story that I read is that there were people, a lot of them that are now complaining about the Rorcal nerf, that have basically gone into this with the mindset of how much does a Rorcal cost, how much do those drones and the fittings cost, how many skill injectors do I need to get a Rorcal pilot? And then they said, okay, I'm buying all of that, or sometimes I'm buying the skill injectors and then I'll be saving up for the ship, and now it gets nerfed. Of course, that's a bit of a slap in the face, but this is such a huge investment to make. You have to understand that any investment like that is going to have risks with it. So this could be a part of why skill injectors are so high at the moment. Another possibility is the burn Cheetah. I think with just a couple of skill injectors you can get an alpha clone into a destroyer in order to join in on the ganks, and so this may be a bit of a turnover because of ganks being done by a single character. There's of course a limit to how many you can do until your security status drops too low, and then I think the current tactic might just be make or grab another alpha character, put a couple of skill injectors in there and keep going. I think that's possibly part of the reason why this is going up like this as well. So Burn Cheetah should last for 3 days, up until Sunday, maybe up until Monday downtime. Depends a little bit on how much energy the goons will have. At the moment it seems like they have quite a bit of pent up energy, because I've already seen quite a few freighters blow up. And if skill injectors start to go down substantially right after that, then I think that Burn Cheetah could really have been the driving force behind this increase in price. If not, then there is need for skill points into other skill pools for some other reason that I'm not seeing right now. So it's pretty interesting, this rise in skill injectors. We're gonna see if it's indeed tied to Burn Cheetah or not. After Plex we've got some mineral stuff that's going to be at 9 minutes. On the dot, that's nice. So here, for instance, in titanium, we do have a second leg down on pretty big volumes. So we are selling for 388, buyers are at 371, but I think that this will become a bottom. At the moment, of course, the Rorcals are still mining up a storm, possibly causing still too high supply for the market, but just the announcement that they're going to get nerfed once again should have a bit of an impact on the market itself. These volumes are pretty crazy though. And it remains a little bit of a gamble, but to be honest, a couple of buy orders in between buyers and sellers at this point for titanium. I think I'm going to do a few small ones because I've already been saving up my minerals. Titanium is of course a very general mineral that's part of almost any ore that you mine. So even in my compressed ore stocks, I have a lot of titanium ready. I'm not going to go crazy with my mineral investments, but I think that there could be a turnaround here because CCP is clearly planning to intervene. Pyrite also still dropping due to extremely high volumes. You can see regular volumes here for October, let's say before Ascension. 2.50 billion right here in the last few days, 5.3 billion. This is really quite a lot, and we are continuing to go down. So pyrite selling for 552, pyrite 518. Buyers have just blown through the 5.5 defense barrier, and we once again see pyrite 1 year low, extremely low prices, still big volumes coming to the market even in the last 24 hours. Yeah, if you want to take a position in the minerals, expecting that the Rorcal nerf is going to change everything up, then this is probably your time to do so. I've also been battling a cold all week. Never got really sick, but just meant that I had to go to sleep very early to be able to stay awake at work. It worked out so far, but I'm still struggling just a little bit. Next up here we've got Mexalon, giving back quite a bit of ground actually. So we used to be around 74, 73 ISK for Mexalon, definitely above 70. Currently selling for 69.35, so stocks are coming in, a bit more dumping happening here, 117 million units. Buyers are at 66.15. And so we are giving ground from a very, very strong Mexalon price. The explanation that I got from this is that in nullsec, in a lot of the ores that are being mined, there is just such a low amount of Mexalon available that even if they mine specifically for Mexalon, nullsec Rorcal miners end up with huge leftovers of titanium, of pyrite, and then at some point of course they're gonna dump that to some market and it will eventually find its way to Cheetah, which is the reason why Mexalon managed to stay so high, because it's actually a lot trickier to mine massive amounts of Mexalon in nullsec anomalies, which is what they're chaining, of course. It's also another thing, you know, I'm just gonna do a quick talk about this. I might make a separate video about the Rorcal nerf from the dev blog perspective, but I think it's pretty important if we look at the mineral market that we keep all of this in mind. So the biggest reason why there is such an influx of minerals is because you can just continuously chain the nullsec anomalies, and so from that perspective the problem is not so much that the Rorcal mines so much ore so quickly, it's that there's basically an endless faucet available in nullsec systems, because you can park a dozen Rorcals in an anomaly, mine that out in a matter of minutes, and then seconds later or a couple of minutes later the anomaly respawns within the system and they can do it all over again endlessly during the entire day. And that's a big difference with let's say high-sec systems where the belts actually deplete eventually. And so from that perspective the problem may be the respawn rate or the respawn mechanic of ore anomalies in nullsec. But of course you have to keep in mind this is something that gets upgraded, this is something that costs ISK to create, and is nerfing nullsec space the right answer to the mineral imbalance that's happening at the moment? I would say probably not, but that's my perspective on it. A lot of people are defending or are against the nerf of the Rorcal, pointing to the enormous cost of the Rorcal. I'm not entirely convinced by that argument myself. While of course, sure, you can compare to the Hulk, you can compare to the Venture and look at how long it's going to take to earn the ship back, but I would say that on the one hand, you have to keep an eye on power creep. You just cannot have this be a linear extension of, well, it costs so much more, so it's going to do so much more. That's just going to create an incredible imbalance between veterans and and new players that they'll never really be able to breach. And so at some point, let's say that you would create a chart of cost and efficiency. At some point, more cost is going to mean less increased efficiency, and it should definitely tailor off for the very best. It should be an incredible cost for a minor increase in efficiency, just like we have with skills. 1, 2, 3 doesn't cost too much time. 4 becomes quite a bit, skill up to 4 takes quite a bit of time to train, but it's for the same increase. And then up to 5 is something that can take days, months, weeks, quite a very long time for that final tick up in efficiency. And so yeah, you shouldn't see that as a linear progression. And the second part, of course, is that there's already so much wealth and stuff slugging around in the EVE economy. It's a mature economy that cost is not going to stop veteran players and the strongest groups from just going for the biggest, the best, and the most efficient way of doing an activity. If it is putting 12 roar calls in an anomaly and sucking that dry in 5 minutes, that's exactly what the biggest groups are going to do. The cost is not really an argument to say that that shouldn't get nerfed at this point. That's my personal feeling on that, of course. Next up, we've got Isogen. Again, massive volumes, even yesterday, and thus we are continuing to go down to all-time low price, I think, for Isogen, selling for 48.33. Bars are at 44.65. If you look at this chart, I would say it's pretty interesting to consider diving into this market. But again, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Do so in a tempered manner. But I think I'm gonna place a couple of buy orders personally. Next up, we've got Noxium. Also going down. This is quite surprising to me. We definitely saw a bit of more hesitation and a slowdown, but here in the last week or so, again, massive volumes coming in. We are going down once again, threatening 300. Yeah, 291 for the sellers, 280 for the buyers. This is pretty damn crazy. Massive dumping, all-time low prices for Noxium. I'm pretty sure about that. And the question is, when do you expect the bottom to be forming? I think that the Rorcal news might help with that. Next up, we've got Nosec. Here is Zydrine. Ooh, that's going down substantially again on massive volume. Someone is dumping all the minerals, I think. 932 for the sellers, 905 for the buyers. That's pretty massive as well. And if you look at this entire chart, again, 900 ISK for Zydrine is something that you could consider buying, to be honest. Is it possible that you need a decent amount of minerals to create Rorcals, that there's been so much in the pipeline that's not going through, that they're now just dumping a lot of that on the market? Something that like that might be possible. Or are there nerfs coming to supers for the ratting, and does that a lot of people are no longer going to bother with those? That's a possibility as well. I'm definitely going to have to read up on all of the posts in the forum about changes that CCP is planning to make there. So here we got Zydrine. Next up, we've got Megasite also giving ground after very strong January and early February, staying around 1500. Megasite is now selling for 1358 and the bars are at 1307. So here, if Zydrine bottoms out, then I think that will mean that more ISK is gonna start to flow in Zydrine, less into Megasite. These tend to be very strongly related, but not always in the way that we think. They don't always move uniformly, which is what you can see right here for Zydrine. Very sharp drop off first half of January already. Megasite staying strong for more than a month. Now, of course, Zydrine dropping to a 1-year low. Megasite starting to drop as well. So I would say Zydrine is in a buy territory right now. Megasite might get there if it has enough momentum, which could be interesting. We're of course looking for between 1000 and 1100 for Megasite, when I would say, okay, you can start moving in, especially if, like me, you're a bit of an industrialist as well. You're looking for some cheap minerals in order to buy stuff. Maybe on the longer term, this is probably your time to look into getting some Zydrine stocks as well. And finally, we have Morphite. That is still continuing its slow trickle down if you look at the 5-day moving average. Selling for 9,671. Buyers are at 8,900, well below 9,000 now as well. So I think you can pick up some cheap Morphite, historically speaking, as well. What we will need, of course, is that Rorcal nerf to hit the spot. for the mineral market to come back, and possibly a nice Gnostic war. That would be nice as well, of course. Oh, I'm thinking of something, so let's write that down. Next up, we've got PI. That's going to be at 1940. There we go. And I think we'll be able to go through these decently quickly. Construction blocks doing really good work again, coming back and well above average price at the moment, selling for 13,900 pretty much, selling for 12,900, almost 13,000 for the buyers as well. So 12,000 for the buyers would be around here on the chart, which is around the average. Damn it. Throat get better. And then you've got the sellers for almost 14,000 ISK for construction blocks. Really strong comeback, and we're selling above average. So it's really good. If you're making construction blocks, you can try to put up some good sell orders, and you'll have a good price. Consumer electronics tried to crawl out of the hole a little bit, did so, but never really managed to get back towards or above its average. So I would say consumer electronics are selling for 12,100 ISK. Buyers are at 11,500 ISK. We're a bit below average, but we're not at the very low point of, this is average 10,000 ISK. Yeah, 10,000 ISK, which would be low prices where you could definitely try to pick up some consumer electronics. So it's maybe a little bit too early on that. What I like, if you're looking for that buy opportunity about this chart, is that in the end here you can clearly see that we're hesitating quite a lot. You can also see that the 5-day moving average is moving all over the place. So a bit of extra supply could actually push consumer electronics back, or a lack of demand could push it back back down. You also have only 12,000 for the sellers, 11,500 for buyers. Is a pretty small margin. So yeah, a couple of 100,000 consumer electronics could actually bring about a buy opportunity, because we can clearly see that the market is hesitating. Whenever it goes up, even to 12,300, something like that, you can see that volumes do come in, and that we have this sharp drop off. So a bit too much supply could actually create a buy opportunity here, I think. Coolants next, still doing really well, although we had to give ground a little bit after reaching 16,000 ISK, which was an incredible price for coolants. We had to give ground back towards 14k. Now we're actually going back up just a little bit. Coolants still selling for 15,500 ISK. Great price, well above average. It's very nice for people that are producing this from coolant from gas planets like myself. Buyers 14,500, so 1,000 spread here, which is, I think, okay. It does indicate that there is very strong demand. Buyers are forced, well above average as well, which I would put around 12,000, maybe something like that. Enriched uranium next, continuing its ascent as well. Very nice to see that. What I'm surprised by some of these is that they fell back after a very strong summer, but they basically reached average prices, maybe slightly below average prices, but now a lot of them are having a very strong comeback once again to really strong price. 15,000 ISK for enriched uranium. You can see the lack of supply here. 15,750 is just one sell order, 17,500 for the rest. If this gets snagged up by the strong demand at the moment, then yeah, enriched uranium is set for 70,500, which is the high point we reached in September as well. So really good time to be selling enriched uranium. If you're feeling very adventurous, pick up those 25,000 units, relist them, and then just start slowing down the downward movement once again. Mechanical parts next, 1 year high, very strong, and this comes from one of the few PI materials that we checked that has not had a strong summer, and it now has an extremely strong start of the year. Currently selling for 15,000 ISK. Bars are at 14,200 ISK. That's 700, pretty much 750. Much smaller margins, so you can see here again very strong demand. Supply is starting to come in quite decently as well, but at a very high point. This is quite normal, and it's still okay to slowly compete with these sell orders. You're definitely selling well above average. The average, because this comes from barren planets, extremely common, very easy to make, is probably around 11,000 ISK right here, maybe even a bit less than that. So really good prices for mechanical parts. Oxygen is staying around 500 ISK at the moment. It's of course also a processed PI material that is needed in fuels, so it should have very good supply but also decent demand as well. So there's not much to say about oxygen. It's staying at 500, which I think is a decent price, probably a little bit above average, but it's going to be hard to really make a lot of money on oxygen, I think, just because of the lower base price. Robotics, on the other hand, breaking to a 1-year high point, 110,000 ISK, selling for 114,000 ISK, buyers at 104,000 ISK. They're forced up above 100,000 ISK from, I think, last week and a week before that. So if you can make robotics, or if you have them available, this is probably your time to sell. 1-year highs here, well above 100,000 ISK, even for the buyers. Really good price. And if you look for this, I think on plasma planets, I think it is, you can make this on a single planet as well, which I think is really cool, with a bit of managing of your extractors, right? You have to switch the extractors out then. If you go for 2 extractors, then the processing, and then you add the advanced to make robotics, you can actually get everything out of that planet. So a little bit of managing, you can actually get a single planet to pump out robotics at a much lower rate than something like coolants or mechanical parts at the moment, of course. But keep in mind, of course, all of this goes for 100,000 ISK, so 10 times the price. Rocket fuel next, coming off of its high point. So the rocket fuel was the one with a very boring year, staying within a very narrow trade range, most of the time around 12,000 ISK. Here we had a nice breakout in January, double top up towards 15,000 ISK. Now I think basically this means that supply is coming in. Yeah, supply is coming in very hard, more than a full front page in the last 24 hours. Let's see. Now the trades are ranging. I think that basically we were at this 15,300, then trades come in at 14,600, 14,500, 14,400, and that's where we are at now. So we had to give ground at some point. Of course, people spot an opportunity like this, they're gonna start bringing their rocket fuel to JITA, and as we give ground a little bit, supply is decently strong, so this could have legs, to be honest, but it's still a good price for rocket fuel. If you want to come in here, sell them for 14,000, really mess with this supply, I think you're still well above average, so I would not be surprised that that would happen. Self-harmonizing power cores next. After a bit of a jump up on a big buy right here, we're back on the same pattern, slowly going down, currently selling for 2.2 million, buyers are at 2 million, just a little bit above that. Superconductors next, that one had a very strong June, so a little bit before most of the other ones that had a strong August, possibly September. Superconductors went up quite sharply. Here again we have the same thing happening, where we had a strong mid-December, moving up to 17,500 ISK for superconductors, and we are already giving back ground. So I'm seeing this as being basically, it is possibly a pattern where superconductors spike a little bit before a lot of the other ones spike. If that turns out to happen, then I think we should keep an eye on this superconductor chart, see if something happens, like maybe a massive dive or another spike, and then keep an eye on the weeks after that for the rest, possibly spot an opportunity that way. If my theory is correct, of course, it could be completely wrong. Currently selling for 14,400 ISK and a bar, so at 14,000 ISK, very narrow margin, only 400 ISK right there, and basically stabilizing at slightly above average price. That's how I would see it, especially with the small margin, even straight to the buyers at 14,000 ISK. Let's take a quick look at that, if we can spot 14k. Right here is probably right on the money for average 14,000. So anything that you have the patience to sell is slightly above average, but if you're selling straight to the buy orders at the moment, you're going to still have an average price. Of course, you're likely to start pushing that price down a little bit as well. Test cultures next. Very similar pattern actually to superconductors. This is quite interesting. Test cultures here, look at that, June spike and December spike, giving ground back. So could these be related to something else? That is definitely possible as well. Maybe I'll need to take a look at the PR chart here. though for test cultures it's a lack of demand. 9,900 for the sellers, 9,000 for the buyers, which on the chart is, well, still a little bit high to say that this is a bottom. You should see buyers of 7,000 at some point if you really want to pick up the cheap test cultures, considering the full 1 year chart. But yeah, it's a lack of demand. You can see there are virtually no buy orders here for test cultures compared to everything else in PI, causing probably a little bit less than average price for test cultures at the moment. And finally, wetware mainframe also going back down slowly. So this is of course related to structures. I think we'll have to wait for FanFest, which is in April, for more news on the drilling rigs. When will those come? I think most people would expect summer. I think that's the most likely as well. So it may still be quite a bit of time until we see increased demand. 2.5 million for the sellers, 2.45 million for the buyers. Pretty narrow margin as well, but we can see quite strong supply. Almost a full front page, including 350, 212, 392, 155 coming in here, competing with each other. This is going to continue to put pressure on the superconductor prices. So that was PI. Next up we have Take One ships, 30, 40. There we go. I think we can go over these pretty quickly because minerals have not made a comeback just yet. You can see here the Apocalypse still down into a pretty low price range, which is normal. It's a battleship, so it takes a lot of minerals, way more than battlecruiser, than cruiser, than destroyer and frigates. As a result, we have very cheap Apocalypses for 161 million, and then we have buyers are at 146 million. There is not much to say. This is the mineral prices showing its their effect on the Tech 1 ships. Here is the arbitrator. This one is currently selling for 8.3 million. The lack of buyers is quite a problem here. 7.7 million for the buyers. If you look at the entire chart, we're definitely below average. I would say 9 million before all of the ascension problems started. Currently, of course, selling for 8.2 million. It's a bit lower than that. It's also, of course, only a cruiser, so it's not as noticeable as in a battleship. The Bellicose next, coming back a little bit. That's quite interesting. But coming back from 7.74 million, average again 9 million for a cruiser. Currently selling for 8.5 million. Buyers are at 6.5 million as well. Looks like it's a bit of a lack of supply here. Nothing in the last 24 hours. Sell orders are dwindling. So here the Bellicose makes a little bit of a comeback. I think, to be honest though, we have quite a few volumes here. So some of these must have been bought. And as a result, I suspect that in the upcoming week or so, we'll see supplies drive this price back down. Next up, we have the Breacher. Here we do have a bit of a buying spree that happened a couple of weeks ago, but despite that, we're still staying, I think, below average. Yeah, Breacher selling for 450,000 ISK, buyers at 405,000 ISK. You used to have to pay 500,000 ISK on average. And are we having tie-dye? I think we're having tie-dye. Probably a lot of explosions happening outside Concord. Sirens all over the place. You can't hear it. I'm keeping all of that in the background. But yeah, keep in mind, Jita is burning. That's going to be the effect right here. Next up, we have the Brutix chart. Again, look at those daily averages slowly pop on the chart. Pretty cool. Yeah, we tried a couple of times to bring the Brutix back in line with an average price of 55 million. It's just not working. Minerals are too cheap. Brutix is selling for 46 million. Buyers are at 43 million. Very cheap time to buy Brutixes, and these are probably okay ganking ships at some point. Catalyst next, also used in ganking. Here, nice volume spike just before a burn Jita. Did it have an impact on the price though? 1.2 million, yeah, up a little bit on the sellers. We used to buy these for just 1 million, so massive amounts have been bought, but massive amounts are available as well. Maybe even being brought here at 1.2 million. Yeah, a couple of people are trying to sell to the gankers, which is normal. It's something that you can do during burn Jita. The buyers though, they have yet to catch up. 870,000 ISK for the buyers. I think that they'll just let this digest, right? A couple of days, burn Jita is over. Oversupply drives the price back down, and the Catalyst will go back to around 1 million, I think. Cormorant next, also up a little bit on a big buying spree 3 days ago. 1.38 million would bring it in line with regular prices. Yeah, 1.4 million, 930,000 as well for the buyers, quite a wide margin. I think this could be in part as an investment, because if I'm not mistaken, the Cormorant is getting a new model. It should be available on CC, and that could of course drive some interest into the Cormorant all of a sudden. So this could actually be an investment for trying to ride the hype of the new model. Crucifier next. Well, this is a terrible chart. Luckily, in a couple of weeks, this should be over and done with. There's really not much to say. 220,000 for a frigate, very cheap. Buyers one are at 168, and despite that, yeah, 400 units here, 261 here. It's gonna keep the Crucifier in check. The Drake next, also definitely a one-year low here if we're below 45 million. Yeah, 44.5 million pretty much for the sellers, 41 million for the buyers. A very cheap Drakes at the moment. This is the minimum price talking here, especially in the battlecruiser battleship market. Next up we've got the Retriever. That is really not good news. You would think maybe with the Rorcal news that this might stop, but nope, we're still going down. Retrievers below 20 million, 19.5 million for the sellers, 17 million for the buyers. You can pick up some cheap Retrievers, and again, if you think that at some point the Rorcal nerf is going to cause a change in the mining landscape, this might make a bit of a comeback, but that remains a big gamble because it is only a Tick 1 mining barge. Now, maybe a quick word on this. I'm thinking about this at some point. I think one mistake that CCP made, a lot of people had already put this in the comments during the dev blog, and while I've never been all too vocal with it, I understand that cost has to mean some benefit. You know, high skill ceiling has to give some benefit. I think that they should have basically given the Rorcals an ungodly boosting bonus, not ungodly mining abilities for themselves, because the result of this that was expected, that was announced by people, was that you're just going to have mining fleets of nothing but Rorcals, and that is of course the biggest mistake. If you give them ungodly boosts, then of course you might have mining fleets with Orcas. You know, if you give it some sort of a different boost, would be great for the Rorcal. Then what you want to have is, if you want to have maybe one Rorcal in a belt or in an anomaly, maybe two. But then you would need a separate layer of some Orcas, and then under that you would need a massive fleet of Hulks, Retrievers, things like that, to take advantage of those massive boosts that the Rorcal gives. So that would probably have been a better tactic, because now we see the result. People went with the most efficient. If a single ship is the most efficient, then people are going to multi-box and fleet only that single ship, which is why we had massive Rorcal fleets. Unfortunately, of course, if they dry up an entire anomaly in a matter of minutes, that doesn't make them more vulnerable. Quite the opposite, in fact. And so, yeah, maybe looking at some sort of a boost that is going to actually make it more likely that you'll get more out of a single belt, or something like that, could be an idea to play with. But of course, all of this at the moment, I'm pretty sure that CCP is looking at it, considering that they're going to nerf the Rorcal right now. So next up, we've got the Tempest here, again a battleship. You can see we start at around 190 million. Mineral prices strike, currently selling for 145 million for a Tempest. To be honest, Tempest, I think at some point they at least have been Gnostic doctrines, but 130 for the buyers, that is very cheap. I would not be surprised if at least some entity makes a move on this Tempest market, picks up everything below maybe 150, maybe even 160, right? Everything below that, buy a bit of a Tempest fleet, drive the price up. Unfortunately, volumes are low even for that. If you want a couple hundred Tempests, they're just not here right now, so which is probably the reason why we have a bit more of a violent swing happening despite the very low mineral prices here. So there we go, Tick 1 ships. Next up, Tick 2 ships at 38.50. Okay, here with the low Morphite prices, that is also something that could be interesting. Is if we have higher Morphite prices, we might see a bit more speculation on this, but with the low Morphite prices, we can see, for instance, here that the Ares has definitely slowed down and settled down in the current trade range. By sellers at 21.8 million. The buyers are at 20 million, and a bit of a slowdown here. The claw next. Oh, big volume spike. Just let's see, on the 21st, but a bit more timid in price increase. So we had a high point of 27 million. Currently we're back down to 22.5 million. Buyers are at 20.6 million. So maybe a slight opportunity in the claw. On a big buy spree, but we definitely don't have the spike up to 30 million, which we had twice, once in October and once in January. But it shows that there is still some volatility here. I do think that with the lower morphyte price, it's going to be a bit less. Here is the crow next also. 21st, big buying spree from 24.7 million up to 28 million. Maybe a little bit of money to be made there, but not all that much. But still, if you can buy them for less than 22 million and then sell them for 28, you're definitely making a little bit of money. So 22 for the buyers, 24.3 for the sellers. Okay, interesting, a bit unexpected. The Aries continues its downward spiral on a 1-year low towards 37 million, 37.6 for the sellers, 35.4 for the buyers. You can definitely pick up some cheap Arieses. Flycatcher next. Oh, nice volume. Also on the 21st. Nope, on the 22nd. That's quite interesting because the Flycatcher was going decently low last week towards 51 million. Currently selling for 60 million. Basically, it's been bought out. That's pretty good. Buyers are still lagging behind at less than 50 million. Yeah, if last week you bought a couple of Flycatchers, which I think if you look at these median daily prices here, would have been a good idea. Maybe these volumes are an indication that it happened a little bit. Great, bring him to the market now, compete for those 60 millions that you can get right now for a Flycatcher. Nice to see again another one that is alive, and it's a different one. It's not an interceptor this time. Here's the Heretic falling back, of course, after pretty strong mid-January. Currently selling for 45 million. That's a couple coming in here, 43 for the buyers. It could be interesting if you look at the entire chart. Yeah, if you can have a sell opportunity at like 50 million or between 50 and 55, you can buy it for the 3. It's bound to make you some money. The Hound next. This one, after a lovely double spike in December and January, is settling down a little bit. Buyers are at 18.3 million. You could try that if you want to invest a little bit in Tech 2 ships. The Hound has definitely settled down. On the next spike, it tends to do really well when it does spike because it is a very popular stealth bomber. Malediction next. Ooh, dropping off quite nicely. Probably coming into buyer territory. Are you buying these for less than 20? Right on the 20 million. So I think it's okay to try to buy these and 0.1 these buy orders. Yeah, I think that's basically it's okay. You just have to wait for the for a war to happen based around interceptor fleets and a couple of those getting lost. Manticore next, also going down quite substantially here after 2 spikes, December, January. Currently selling for 24 million, buyers are 22.5 million. You know, the Manticore is a bit more expensive, generally speaking. 22.5 million is obviously the lower part of the chart as well. You could try to buy a couple of these. Here's the Nemesis. That one is unfortunately not at a low point. So currently selling for 23.5 million, buyers are 20.5 million. I think you want Nemesis for 18 million or something like that on the buyer side of things. So too early for that one. Purifier next, also coming down, but I don't think, yeah, you can definitely have buy orders below 20 million. They're still at 20.2 million, so, and it's 69 of them. You may want to be a bit more patient for the Purifier, to be honest. And finally, we have the Saber. After knowing a pretty good January, finally coming down, but still a ways to go. I think 45 million for the buyers would be our target. 48 million. We're slowly getting there. For 52 million for the sellers, still a decent price as well. So hold on for the Saber. If you're looking to buy something, I would say the Hound is starting to look pretty interesting. The Aries still looks very interesting. And will you get opportunities? Well, here the Claw had a little bit of an opportunity, so did the Crow, and the Flycatcher is working on one right now because they're selling for 60 million. So there you go, Tech 2 ships. With low morphyte prices, I think that some buy opportunities are forming up. You do, of course, want some nullsec shenanigans in order to actually be a bit more certain that there will be more volatility. Next up, Tech Tree, 44.15. Okay. So here we go. Confessor, slowly going up. Couple of higher median daily price than 29 million. So those sell orders of 29 million have dried up. Price is up 32 million, a little bit for the sellers now. Still a couple of big players coming in with a lot of them, but we are from that bottom. So you could have picked up just straight from the buy orders. 29 million for a Confessor was probably your best bet to make a bit of an investment. I did that on all of them, but very small one, 100 million for everyone. So 3-4 of them is basically what I bought. That's it. But I'm looking to find now, if we see a spike in any of these, you have a sell opportunity on your hand. Now I would personally prefer to see something like around close to 40 million. So I would say that the Hecate at 32 million is too early to decide to start dumping already. But yeah, at least we're away from those massive numbers at 29 million. That dumping is over. Now we can have market forces back. Keeping an eye on this, we might see a sell opportunity form at some point. Here's the Jackdaw selling for 32 million as well. Buyers are at 27 million. Give the market some time, and I think that there may be a chance. Here's this Vapel next, still pretty damn low, but also in the last couple of days you can see that yeah, we're up a little bit in median daily price. 32 million for the sellers. Big dumping happening here once again. 27 million for the buyers. It is possible that someone came in, bought all of the 29 million sellers, relisted them at 32 million. That means we'll have to wait another step for all of this to be absorbed. It's definitely looking like it. If I look at the Vapel here, if I look at the Jackdaw here, if I look at the Hecate here, and if I look at the Confessor here, 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 and here, then that is probably what happened. So be careful. But yeah, a couple weeks ago, you could just straight up buy these for 29 million. If you want to risk a buy order at 28 or something like that, you can try it, but I think it's going to be tricky to pick those up. So I think your best buy opportunity is over. Right now, it's all about the market being able to absorb the fresh supply and all of this stuff that has been dumped. But once it does that, normal forces take over. I think we might see a sell opportunity. It could be medium to long term, but that's why we have Eve Talk. Next up, let's take a look at the cruisers. Here's the Legion, still at definitely a low point, pretty much a 1 year low. 127 for the sellers, 119 for the buyers. So again, you could pick up a Legion for less than 120. I think that's a good deal any day. Next up here, we've got the Loki selling for 126, buyers are at 119.5. Again, you can pick these up for 20 million, 120 million, sorry. I think that's a pretty good deal. The Proteus next, definitely at a 1 year low, selling for 125, buyers 116. If I would put up a buy order, it would be at a Proteus, probably 118 or something like that, so that you're sure to pick up a couple of them. Or decently sure to pick up a couple of them, and that is very cheap historically speaking. Finally, here we have the Tengu, also down in price substantially. 127 for the sellers, 117 for the buyers. Again, you can probably pick up some of these Tech Tree cruisers for less than 120 million. Again, don't put all your money into this basket, but all of these charts are again showing 1 year lows. At some point this will or should come back. And then for the extra materials, a request, I also spotted it on Reddit, and so I had already written it down before you requested it, but indeed, heavy water, what the hell is happening here? Ice products, I think, heavy water, look at that chart. So just summer, September, something like that, we could have bought this for less than 100 ISK, and it's currently selling for 745 ISK. That's pretty damn crazy. Buyers are at 656 as well. I think it's basically a lack of supply. You also have pretty big volumes here, but I think it's basically a lack of supply from heavy water. But this is 7 times the price we had 6 months ago. This is quite a wild ride. At some point this is going to stop. I would not be surprised that 750 is going to be the top. So I would say if you have some cheap heavy water lying around, bring that to the market, because this is crazy in the sense that I can't really see a mechanic or a CCP change that caused this, and yet we do see something that has grown in price sevenfold. And even here, the last leg, in 1 month, we have more than a doubling of the price. So that's a lot of ISK to be made if you happen to have heavy water. Unfortunately, I do not. Now, next up for my personal wants here that I want to check as the extra ones, I also want to take a look at freighters, because, well, they're blowing up quite massively at the moment. So let's see if I can find those, I think, under capital ships, actually. Freighters. Let's take a look at Providence. Oh, it's actually at pretty low points. You just need minerals for these guys. So that's quite nice for people that are losing freighters at the moment. Providence only costs 1.13 million. It's at a 1-year low point. That's pretty good. Next up here we get the Charon, very similar. This is it. Let's take a look. I need to see what these are made of. Industry, capital, and then these are made of. Yeah, they're made of minerals, and so a much bigger impact even than on the battleships. Here you get this very wild drop off here. Charon also selling for 1.2 billion. Here's the obelisk chart, also at a 1-year low point, 1.168 billion. And then finally here we get the Fenrir, also at a 1-year low point. This is due to the minerals, because basically you're making this out of minerals. Now 1.1 billion for the Fenrir here, for sale. So Burn Cheetah hasn't had an effect just yet. It's gonna be interesting to see if anything moved last week. So I'll definitely, I think, take a look at freighters next week as well. Writing it down. Freighters, there we go. And maybe because Burn Cheetah related ships, let's also take a quick look at, is it a cruiser from a Mar? Nope. No, it's gonna be a destroyer from a Mar. Let's see, destroyers, which I've mostly seen used in these gangs. It's the Corsair. Yeah, look at that, massive volumes here. 1100 in the yesterday, basically. A couple of days before that, you're still at 800 here as well, 600 here as well. Massive numbers of Coercer, currently selling for 2.2 million, which is twice the normal price of a destroyer. So the Coercer is the weapon of choice at the moment in the Burn Cheetah campaign. So this is where you're making your money, if you can quickly produce them or if you have them lying around and bring them to the market. And there is no noticeable effect on the freighter prices just yet, but with the whole weekend of freighters blowing up, we might see a bit of a comeback. So I'll definitely check on those next week as well. And that's going to be it for this EVE talk. Definitely an interesting week in EVE Online. Lots of fascinating announcements. Burn Cheetah starting. Then we have the Rokal nerf that caused a little bit of a stir on Reddit from what I saw. And we also have the announcement that we're going to work with NASA for search of exoplanets for the real science stuff in EVE Online. So all of this, honestly, it's making me look forward to FanFest more and more. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.